COVID-19 has brought forth an adjustment in the world of education that presents many new hurdles and obstacles that both student and teacher have to overcome. Teaching through a computer screen is an unexpected challenge, riddled in a sea of unexplored medium. From changes in curriculum to a complete overhaul of instruction, Hannah Sabetti shares her experience.
So my name is Hannah Sabetti, and I'm a EC special education teacher at Watauga High School, and I support students, specifically freshmen, in Math 1 this semester, and then I have a caseload of 25 students who I also support. So the biggest change for me in terms of how COVID has changed my job, but also outside of that, is that well, it feels like everything's changed. What hasn't changed might be a better way to say it. For me, I'm a people person. So people fuel me. Relationships fuel me. I teach because I get to build relationships with students. And literally having that taken is what COVID has done. So my jobs outside of teaching, because every teacher has another job, also require me to work with humans, and I have actually lost one of those jobs, and my other one's basically on pause until this is over. And so there's just significant challenges being able to try to continue strong relationships with students so they engage in content. And then on a personal level, there's just challenges in regards to mental health, both for students and educators and human beings that are alive right now.
I asked her what was the difference in the change of curriculum.
So the tricky part with curriculum and curriculum changing and us teaching curriculum is that we hear something new from the Department of Instruction almost weekly about grades, about the school year. We have found out that our school year is going to continue to be remote for the rest of the school year. We found out when our kids are going to be done. And so now in terms of curriculum, what we are expected to do in May is two things. One, continue to give instruction to students and prepare them for the next level class. So I support a Math 1 class. I need to support students in preparing for Math 2. So what is essential for them to know going in that class? And that's the information we're presenting them. Whereas before, curriculum was really focused on preparing a student for a Math 1 EOC. Because those state tests and end-of-course tests are not happening this semester, we're preparing and shifting curriculum to prepare students for the next level class. So curriculum's definitely making a shift, and then I think it's also important for people to realize that this isn't affecting this school year. The fact that students are literally essentially missing half of a semester of content and instruction by teachers, this is going to affect students for the next 2 to 3 school years, depending on how they have used this time or how they have not used this time, and depending on what things look like moving forward. So it's going to affect how we teach students for clearly the rest of this year, but for the years ahead. So leadership teams are just trying to plan what that will look like moving into next year.
We also discussed how this new change of using the computer as the sole source of communication has changed the approach for many of her students.
So in terms of remote learning and how students, it's interesting, right? So you're trying to figure out what's going to happen when you make this shift to learning online. So I don't know that I've seen one thing consistently. I've definitely seen students who fully participate in class fully participate online. I also have a student who failed last 9 weeks, but she has done every day's work while we've been doing remote learning. So it's really hard to figure out what's the deal, what's going on with kids. I also have kids who are literally working jobs from 8 to 6 and do all their work on weekends. I have some students who are helping take care of their siblings because their parents are still working. And so it is really different. Just like in the classroom, every student has different struggles. You really have to look at the individual needs of students, which is why there's plenty of soapboxes that I will not get on about how teaching remotely has to have options, because students have to learn in different ways, especially when it's online. But as it relates to how students are choosing to learn or choosing to use this time, there are a few students who I think actually prefer this way because it gives them flexibility. Whereas at school, it was in class, sometimes it felt like to them there's just this one way of learning. So I think I've seen it all over the board in terms of how kids are using this new way of learning and like what the struggles are.
Something that people may not consider is that of a daily schedule. In these days of social distancing and self-quarantine, a consistent routine is important to maintain one's sanity.
Routine is definitely important as it pertains to staying sane right now. For me, Monday to Friday pretty much looks the same. So I get up in the mornings around 7 or 7:30. And then Carter and I get suited up and get to just walk around. And I'm lucky enough to live in a place that allows me to enjoy just being outside and have some space. And then after our walk, I'll typically come in and make breakfast and of course make coffee, which I'm drinking a lot of these days. And then I get to my computer and start working on the day, checking emails, and then working on paperwork for students or getting on Google Hangouts with students. And a lot of times it really is just sending emails and trying to chase students virtually around to make sure they're getting their work done, which is interesting. And then in the afternoons, I try to just make time to work out to keep sanity, and because I also eat entirely too much, because when you're bored, you eat. And then I'm working on redoing the house that I live in right now. So I think it is good to have some sort of like big project or a book to read or something to do to keep yourself like balanced if you are still working right now between like working and having another thing that you do. So for me, that's like getting outside or working on the house or working out.
Hannah certainly has her set of challenges as a math and special education teacher teaching from her home. Another perspective is offered by Corey Cellural, a choir teacher in Minnesota, and the challenges that she faces.
My name's Corey Cellural, and I teach middle school choir in Minneapolis, Minnesota for Wayzata Public Schools. The biggest challenge for this online learning experience in choir is taking a class that's mainly whole group at all times and splitting it into 100% individual activities. Kids are not used to recording themselves and doing individual work in choir. So the amount of grading on my end for 300 students has also increased big time. It takes a lot of time to fill out all of these answers for them and give them feedback. So just making the big switch from whole group of 30 students to all individual.
So it's creating a lot more work for you.
Yes, that is definitely how I feel, because I have about 300 students total. So when you think most teachers, depending on their setting by grade levels, they usually have about 100 per team. So to have 300 that you're in charge of amongst 3 grade levels is a lot to handle when you have to grade individual, like written work every single day instead of observational, which is what I usually do. Challenge for the kids is definitely being a little bit more independent learners. The big thing that I've noticed is they immediately send me emails like, I don't understand what to do. What do we do? And my response will be, did you read the directions? And the first thing they say is, oh, wait, let me go back and do that. They're really used to having teacher-led instruction at all times. So I think that's the biggest challenge for them, but I also think it's a good thing to kind of push them a little bit and push up their independence and maturity level to, you have to read all the details, you have to watch the videos and put in that effort before learning can happen. The students are definitely missing out on a choir experience, because choir is a whole group activity. Like you cannot have choir alone. When you're doing choir alone, you are a solo artist. So they've never had to have that experience to sing by themselves and put them, just hearing their voices in that vulnerable setting, So they're definitely missing out on being in front of me and matching people around them, hearing the harmonies in a room together and how your voice contributes to the group, responding to a conductor's vocal gestures. That's also part of a choral education. So they're definitely missing out on those things. But then I think it's a positive that they're learning how to sing by themselves and hold themselves accountable. I've heard a couple of responses because I've asked how they felt, and they're like, whoa, I actually didn't realize how wrong I was singing that section. So this has been kind of helpful. So the same thing, I think that's a positive twist, and I'll definitely use some of these assessments once we can get back in the classroom. My habits, I've tried to keep the same. So we're in week 4 right now. So the first week and a half, I was really trying to focus on my exact same schedule that I had from school. And I really quickly had burnout from that. So I usually go to the gym at 5:30 a.m. in order to get to school on time, but it's been kind of nice. I've taken that out of my schedule, and now I do it at around like 12 or 1, which is a really good break. So I usually start being on the computer around 8 a.m., answering emails, talking to kids. So it's been good for me to establish that new break in the middle of the day to put working out in. And I take a walk every day now that it's finally warm here. For sure. I feel like it has been, for a lot of people, a positive experience. Obviously, there's lots of frustrations with things being closed, and we would rather be back in our regular norm. But I think it's been eye-opening for a lot of students and teachers I've had conversations with, how burnt out we all kind of were. So I think it's going to teach us a good balance of workload and, like I said, the independence from the students. And from my perspective teaching, I'm learning a lot of new skills with technology. It was always there, but since I was in front of them, I didn't use it because I just did what I always knew. So it's been kind of eye-opening to explore technology and education a little bit and how it can benefit my choir classroom.
Most importantly, we've learned to wash our hands.